Welcome to the Week Ahead, a podcast by SPM Intelligence. I'm your host, Veronica Pana Igube. Every Friday, we explore stories shaping our continent. Fresh fighting has erupted in North Kivu, Democratic Republic of Congo, despite a recent peace deal. M23 rebels clash with pro-government Wazalendo militia, capturing two villages. What steps can be taken to resolve the dispute and prevent further violence in North Kivu? In Lagos, the Badagry Local Government Council Development Area has renamed Charly Boy Bus Stop to Baddo Bus Stop in honor of rapper Olamide. This move sparked controversy, with human rights lawyer Femi Falana criticizing it as unconstitutional and lacking public consultation. Legal expert Monday Ubani added that the change promotes ethnic bias and threatens Lagos' diverse and inclusive identity. Should public landmarks be renamed without community input? And how can cities like Lagos balance cultural recognition with inclusion? Peter Obi has accused President Tinubu's government of giving false economic reports to make things seem better than they are. He says the real situation, rising hunger, poverty and joblessness, is being hidden with fake numbers of inflation and GDP. How can the government be more open and truthful about the state of the economy? Joining us for further insight is Confidence Mark Henry, security analyst at SBM Intelligence. Welcome, Confidence, to the show.
Hi, Veronica. Hello, listeners. It's good to be back here.
Thank you. Let's start with the DRC and the conflicts, the renewed conflict in North Kivu. What do you think are the key failures of this recent peace agreement in North Kivu, and how can these be addressed to ensure lasting peace? Because we had seen an agreement and we had seen kind of a peaceful resolution, but now we're seeing fresh conflicts rising again. So what do you think is causing it, and how do you think it can be addressed?
Okay, first things first, we need to understand why background to where the clashes are coming from. The M23 rebels have been attacking Eastern DRC for some years, for about a decade now, since 2012, if I'm not mistaken, and it has been a point of contention between Rwanda and the DRC, that's the Democratic Republic of Congo, who the Rwandans accuse of housing the FDLR group, which are Congolese Hutus who are known for attacking Rwandan positions. So the M23 rebels are ex-Congolese army officials who are supported by Rwandans. So this dates a lot back to the Rwandan genocide of 1993 or 1994 rather, and some of the politics in and around the Hutu and Tutsi rivalry in that area. What happened? The start of this crisis, this current iteration of the violence, began late last year in 2024, where the M23, which had been pushed out of several parts of the DRC by a combined force of South African troops, Ugandan troops, and the likes, they suddenly staged a return in a very rapid succession, which they were heavily and openly aided by the Rwandans, who initially denied it, but overwhelming even evidence from the United Nations, which were incontrovertible, showed that at the very least, at any given point, the Rwandans had about 4,000 soldiers sitting in eastern DRC, unofficially helping the M23 rebels. So they were able to take town after town. So between January and March this year, they seized both North Kivu and South Kivu, the capitals, and all of that. So I think between March and June, there were a lot of talks that had to do with pausing the fighting, a lot of interest, and the Americans got involved by virtue of the fact that both countries did not believe in the ability of regional organizations such as the East African Community or the South African Development Commission to mediate successfully in the crisis, because both sides accuse the would-be mediators of having an interest in the conflict. So, for instance, the South Africans who were there were allegedly there at the invitation of the Congolese government. And then when they tried to mediate the conflict, the Rwandans accused them of taking a side. And some of their soldiers were trapped by M23 guys. And it had to take a direct tit for tat exchange on Twitter for the Rwandans to ensure safe passage for the South African soldiers to return home. So both sides look to the US for mediation, because the United States had a new administration. The Trump government returned to the White House in January, and with it came the return of naked, cold, realpolitik, where American foreign policy moved sharply away from its traditional bent into just basic American interests first. And so, with the rising geopolitical competition over um, critical minerals, rare earths, and the likes, the Americans were looking um, to compete with the Chinese and the Russians from wherever they can get them. And Congo is a very, very important hotspot for rare earths. We're talking about things like coltan, lithium, cobalt, and the likes. And in coltan, for instance, one of the reasons why the M23 guys are there is because they make over $800,000 monthly in exporting illegal coltan to the world. So the Americans were very interested in the conflict for the mere fact that Congo is a very, very important hotspot for the extraction of rare earths, diamonds, and the likes. And so it would not make sense for the Americans to do business there if there was the kind of fighting going on. It will hurt American interests. So the White House got two of them, the two countries, into a deal, and they were happy to the Americans, and they put together this deal. But I have to say that the Congolese government was not enthusiastic in signing the deal in the beginning, because they felt that there was this particular provision which they were not comfortable with, and which was the provision that says that the M23 will be gradually eased back into government affairs in the Congo. So the Congolese government did not like that, but I don't know, for some reason, after hesitation, they finally signed the deal in June. The deal has fallen apart, and why has it fallen apart? It is simple. There was a particular provision which both of them could not come to agree with, apart from the one about the M23 incident. And there was a particular ambiguous one, which was about the M23 withdrawal. So the deal was set M23 to get out of Goma, which is the capital of North Kivu. The Congolese government interpreted this particular clause as immediate and unconditional. Meanwhile, Rwanda and the M23 viewed it as contingent on neutralizing the FDLR militias, that's the Hutu militias who have allegedly been attacking Rwandan positions. So that particular failure for the M23 to vacate Masisi and Goma triggered the latest round of clashes. So on the 22nd of July, which is this month, this outgoing month, about 3,000 to 4,000 Rwandan troops, according to your reports, attacked Wazalendo militia in Masisi, and they justify this particular attack by saying that the Congolese government failed to disarm the FDLR. Meanwhile, the Rwandans interpreted this attack against these militias, as what is it called now? A defensive posture due to the border threats that the FDLR, like I said before, poses to Rwanda. So this is the summary of the entire matter, and it speaks generally and broadly to the problems of peace deals in Africa, especially these ones. Many of these deals that have been put together by the Trump administration. America wants to do deals, especially with Trump being president. They want to see deals. And since they just want to get the conflicts out of the way, many of these other guys, as many of these other people, maybe not just in Rwanda and the Congo alone, just several other conflict spots in the world are taking advantage of Trump's aversion to violence, war, and everything, and then his quick interest in maintaining peace at all costs. In just doing anyhow, these US diplomats are also just taking advantage of the whole situation and they paper over the cracks without sitting down to do the extraordinary work of looking at the nitty-gritty, the fine prints of the details to make sure that no stone is left unturned and no loophole is found to be exploited. And this is the summary of why this particular deal failed. Before they signed it, I had skepticism. I've said in previous fora that I do not think that this deal is going to last, but I didn't think in my wildest imagination that it was going to fall apart so soon.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. The priorities of the US has changed as well. And we're I mean, you stated that you saw the peace deal crumbling, but you didn't like see it crumbling so fast. So, what do you think can be done going forward? Is the best way disarming these militias and having like an amnesty program where they give up their arms for a certain level of agreement or terms to be reached? Do you think that the way we had that arms trade in Nigeria as well um, worked for the Niger Delta? Do you think it's something that's going to work for the DRC?
I think the issues are more thorny than amnesty. To be fair to the Congolese side, to the Rwandan side, which I do think that it's a justification to some extent, they base their arguments upon the the continued existence of the FDLR, which they have said that attacks their position, and they use it as a justification. So as long as that particular Hutu militia is not disbanded, I'm not sure that the Rwandans who are backing the M23, who have finally accepted publicly that they are involved in the M23, that they are going to accept that kind of a thing. So I think on paper, a lasting measure of peace would be the supervised disbandment of both sides. So both countries are saying that both countries are accusing each other of supporting militias to encroach on each other's territories. The M23 is being sponsored by Rwanda, the FDLR is being sponsored by DRC. So if they could manage to get a way in which they could publicly get both armed groups to disarm, and any of such things around those sides, and making sure that this particular disarmament is being supervised not just by the two countries, but with the involvement of the UAE, the EAC, and the United Nations, as well as some of the Americans. I think it might go a long way. I'm not saying that this is a Hail Mary, but I think it might go a long way. But I do not see this happening because the money that is involved and the resources that the N23 rebels get is just a little too much. It's a little too sweet and it's a little too juicy for them to give it up. Like I said previously, these guys are making over $800,000 in exporting coltan alone. Coltan is one of the world's most preeminent rare earth. It is used in making batteries, renewable energies, and several of the likes that are in demand in technological enterprise and the like. So having access to that amount of cash, I think that's one of the reasons why Rwanda has refused to let go of the Congo, the Eastern DRC. So it's simply too crazy. The money is too sweet for them to let it go. I'm sorry. I do not really see an easy approach to how this thing is going to be resolved. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, especially as money is involved, you're making a lot of money from it. I mean, it's going to be difficult. But let's move over to our Nigerian story. In Lagos, we saw the famous Charlie Boy Bus Stop renamed to Baddo Bus Stop in honor of rapper Olamide. What's your thoughts on this issue? Do you think that in naming public landmarks in Nigeria, there needs to be like a formal public consultation with the people to get kind of like get their sentiments on if they want it changed or and do you think that this change is controversial? I mean, it has been a controversial change. Do you think that it reveals um, a deeper tension around cultural identity and political influence in urban decision making, especially in which we kind of have like some ethnic tensions already in the country. So issues like this are quickly taken to be taken because of ethnic or political like influence as well. So what are your thoughts on this?
All right, first things first, I think there is a legal challenge, or there's a legal context to this. So constitutionally, the law is to tell you that the authority to rename bus stops and streets lies with the local government councils. That's the local government areas. That's what is in the constitution. Specifically, the fourth schedule of the constitution assigns local government areas with the responsibility for naming and numbering streets and public places within their jurisdiction. But then Lagos came up with this thing in 2003 where they broke the LGAs further down into LCDAs, so local council development areas, which is a subset of the local government areas. So usually, if this was pre 2003, we could have had the Oshodi Solo local government area. I think if I'm not mistaken, that's where Charly Boy Bus Stop falls under. Also the Solo local government area doing the renaming. But now the people who do the renaming of the bus stop, Charly Boy Bus Stop, was the Bariga local council development area. This LCDA thing is not recognized in the constitution as far as I know. They are creations of state law and they are not constitutionally mandated bodies. So I understand where Femi Falana is coming from. That this is largely unconstitutional, and for this kind of a thing where they are doing it, it's if it is a different case of where without bias, without prejudice, the local council development area or the LGA comes around to say, in honor of certain people, certain illustrious sons of this particular state, we want to rename a particular street, or a particular bus stop, a particular landmark after them. Yes, this kind of things might be entertained in the form of having public participation in this by saying we need public consensus, or even if they decide to do it on their own without even public consultation, people will really look waste too much just about it. However, this particular thing wasn't done without bias. It was done as a means of ethnocentrism, you know. And this ethnocentrism is something that we've noticed has been brewing on social media for quite some time, and it has spilled out into the street, that has now involved the lowest base of politics in Lagos, which is at the LCDA council area. And there is this whole rivalry between Igbos and Yorubas that you get to see on social media right now, especially on Twitter, that has been amplified by virtue of the 2023 elections, which the political elites, the ruling elites in the state, weaponize it to a great effect in making sure that they keep control of the states politically. And many people on social media have not only amplified it, they have bought into the vision. They've set up social media accounts that are anti-Igbo in nature, and they've succeeded in getting people on the ground to to change names, to change the names of bus stops that are Igbo bearing in name, to change it to Yoruba names. So the mistake we'll be making is in thinking that this is about bus stops. No, it is not about bus stops. It is far more political. It is ethnic, and it is I think it's the bellwether of something that is not really good. I don't even want to say it's the bellwether, because I think this is the imagine of some of the online rhetoric and the online hate that has not really been curbed. That the people who created this genie have not been able to put it back in the bottle because they refuse to put it back in the bottle, and it has simply left the bottle is manifesting in different forms on the ground.
I do agree with you, but I mean, something that also came to my mind is thinking about this local government or the agency in charge just finding other creative ways of honoring outstanding members of their society. I mean, we've seen instances where you would have a day, that particular day declared as the Olamide Day, and he can be given the key to the city, things like that. Having like, I mean, the Hollywood stars as well, the walkways where everyone can get their stars. I think those kind of innovative ways of appreciating celebrities or people who have made outstanding contributions to the society is easier as opposed to, and I think that it has also been a trend in Nigeria where we'll see monuments that have had certain names for a very long time being changed. I mean, there was even a controversy, you will agree with me, of the universities where you find out the names of the universities are changed just to suit a certain level of appreciation, they may say. But I mean, that's just my thoughts on that. Um, we can move to our final story. So, Peter Obi has accused President Tinubu's government of giving false economic reports to make things seem as if the country is better. Why do you think he's pushing out these accusations on the Tinubu-led administration? And do you think that independent institutions such as the National Bureau of Statistics, which is very critical to providing accurate data for government and for citizens as well, to be protected from political interference so we wouldn't face situations like this?
You know, let me take your mind back to history. In 2009, I think it was in Cairo that then US President Barack Obama made this speech where he mentioned something. He was talking to some students at university in Cairo, and then he decried the proliferation of strong men in Africa. And he went something like Africa do not no longer need strong men, they need strong institutions. And everybody claps, yay. But the reality is this. Over the past 10 years or so, we have come to discover that it is not just about having strong institutions. You also need strong men. The Nigerian example says a lot about this. So the National Bureau of Statistics is supposed to be one of those strong institutions where, for any government worth its salt, you know that it do not tamper with data, because it will be a form of deceiving oneself, in the sense that you can deceive everybody, but one should simply not get high on their own supply, because when you start getting high on your own supply, you're on the fast lane to death. You're killing yourself. But then we've got Nigerian government who do not really understand the need for data. And it's not just a Nigerian government thing. It is a popular Nigerian culture. We have disregard for data. Now, why I said the National Bureau of Statistics is supposed to be independent is it's created to be independent because for you to run a country, you need a statistics agency that will give you raw, unvarnished data that is free of political influence. For some time, up to about 2021, memory fails me. The NBS used to have some guy as his DJ named Yemi Kale. Yemi Kale served, I think, about 2 terms, and his tenure expired, and he left. Now, his tenure expired when Buhari was government. So, as terrible as the Buhari administration was, objectively, they were they were keen on letting Yemi Kale do his job. Now, when he left, they started bringing in people who could talk to whatever the government says. Yemi Kale wasn't one of those people who could talk to what the government says. He will bring out his data. He will bring out the data that the MBS brings out, and then he will defend it to great extent from whoever wants to cast aspersions on the data. After his exit, the government of the day and the subsequent government of the day started targeting the NBS, and then they started bringing in people who say yes to whatever the government wants. Now, one of those instances in demonstrating how compromised the MBS was last December's release of the kidnap data, where they said that um, they brought up this figure about a very high number of people that pay that have been kidnapped in the country, over 600,000, I think. Basically, the amount was insane. It was out of this world, and it went viral. And the director general of the MBS got invited by the DSS. Invited, quote unquote, the director general of the NBS, and in the period he was in DSS's custody, not only was the NBS's website down, by the time it was out, the report had disappeared from the website. Now, this is problematic on several fronts because, contrary to what Obama preached in 2009 in Cairo, it is not enough for you to have strong institutions. Who are going to run these strong institutions if not strong men? If you contrast the caliber of leadership of the NBS from when Yemi Kale, who is currently at Afrexim Bank now, when he used to run the organization, with his successors, you could see that for such an institution as strong as the NBS, the absence of a strong man manning it or running it has simply led to problems for its credibility, and which is what Peter Obi is talking about now. Why this is a problem is, as a rule, the first rule for a human being is you can lie to every other person, but one must not lie to oneself. Because by the time you lie to yourself and you become high on your own supply, you're on a fast way to self-destruction. This is even more true for governments, that you can kick, you can hate, you can whimper at data that is uncomfortable for you. But at the end of the day, you have two options. The first option is you can kill the messenger while killing the message, which is what the government is doing with the NBS. And you can simply look at the uncomfortable data, the uncomfortable reality, and say that this is as crazy as it is. We need to do something about this ugly information. Now, that ability to synthesize, self-reflect, and take a step back to do the right things based on new information. Once the Nigerian government begins to lose it, it's not only going to affect the Nigerian people, it's also going to affect the government in the sense that whatsoever data that it brings out is not going to be respected on international fronts. And this is not conjecture. Look at the population data, for instance. Since 2006, the Nigerian state has not conducted a census, so it does not accurately know the population of the people living within its defined territory. And so, for all of the population statistics you see about Nigeria, it is projections from external sources, especially from the UN. And this is not how to run a state. So, most people who looked at what the NBS did with their new formula of calculating the GDP strength and everything, simply take it with a pinch of salt. Nobody who is what is salt or what is onions look at that calculation, especially with the calculation of GDP and the inflation rate, as anything to go by. And so what they do? Disregard whatever the government says, and they look at external data. And when you begin to do this, your status as a banana republic is forever cemented unless you begin to take steps to redeem this. And this is what Peter Obi is trying to say. And I do not only agree with Peter Obi, I have to warn government that you cannot keep getting away with this. You can deceive people sometime. You cannot deceive the people all the time.
Thank you very much, Confidence, for joining us on today's episode. And to all our listeners, this podcast is by SBM Intelligence. You can find and access our podcast by searching for SBM Intelligence anywhere you find podcasts. For deeper insights into our work, please visit our website at sbmintel.com. Remember to connect with us on all our social media platforms. You can find us on X, Facebook, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn at SBM Intelligence. Thank you. That's all for today. See you next week.